And now I'm going to tell you how to improve your brain health by 30 to 50% with 9 lifestyle changes that go according to the acronym SNOWBRAIN, SNOWBRAIN. It is amazing the research that has come out on how exercise is so good for your brain health. And you really want to take, let's say, this brain health show right here to another level. I mean, we're working hard to try and make this the optimized, brain health show on the internet, period.
Welcome back to the DrSnowBrainHealth show, where we talk about brain health and the importance of your personal habits and how to improve your brain. So we're going to be talking about the SNOWBRAIN Principles. So Dr. Snow, could you tell us a little bit about the SNOWBRAIN Principles, the thought process behind them, and what are these SNOWBRAIN Principles?
So, I was thinking of an acronym, how could I improve my brain health by the lifestyle changes? Something really simple to do. And I thought of 9 lifestyle changes based on the word SNOWBRAIN. So this is the Dr. Snow Brain Health Show. And now I'm going to tell you how to improve your brain health by 30 to 50% with 9 lifestyle changes that go according to the acronym SNOWBRAIN, SNOWBRAIN. So let's talk about that.
Fantastic. So let's just start with the first 4. So tell me about SNOW. What does SNOW stand for?
Besides my name, SNOW. So S in SNOW is for sleep. It's important that you get about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It really recharges your brain. And they actually found in recent evidence, I talk about brain plaques sort of clogging up your brain as you age. It looks like Swedish meatballs. It's made up of a protein called the beta amyloid protein. There's a lot of research on this for memory loss and dementia. It turns out that when you sleep, it actually helps clear out the beta amyloid plaques naturally. So it's part of the system in the brain, and there's been research papers that have been published within the last 3 to 4 years that show while you're sleeping, your brain is actually clearing out the toxins. Now, 7 to 8 hours of sleep is hard to get. Some people don't sleep that well, but it's important to do that. It helps clear out the toxins. And if you want to know what brain amyloid plaques are, I have some other videos on the Dr. Snow Brain Health channel in which I talk about what beta amyloid plaques are. So S is trying to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I don't really get that, but I'm always trying to.
All right, what about N?
N is for Nuke Bad Habits. So what does that mean? Well, if you could decrease smoking, big thing, alcohol, recreational drugs, if you could decrease that, it's going to improve not only your physical health, but also your brain health. The recreational drugs and alcohol and smoking, it damages brain cells, it impairs cognitive abilities. And if you could reduce that, it's going to improve your brain health. Better decision making, your mental agility is going to be much better. So N is Nuke Bad Habits, and it will improve your brain health if you do that.
All right, so sleep, Nuke Bad Habits. O,
optimize your day. What does that mean? I actually use a written journal to plan and review my day. I took this course that was pretty interesting. and it was all about laws of attraction and stuff like that. We could talk about that on another episode. But what I found is that if you actually write out your goals and have it blue ink on white paper, this is important. A lot of times you have these calendars and they're on your phone, or they just want you to type it out. It doesn't really get embedded into your subconscious mind. But if you actually write it with blue ink on white paper, and I use a sort of a management journal where each page is one day, and I write out all the goals, all the things I want to do that day. And once I achieve them, I actually highlight it in blue. And then I figure out what percentage of goals did I achieve that day. And usually I'm trying to hit like 80 to 90%. And it actually works amazingly. So I believe that written goals on a piece of paper, blue ink on white paper, helps you achieve them. And if you even think that the goals have already happened, which is sort of how the laws of attraction work, and I believe in that a lot, it actually helps you a lot. It helps prioritize your tasks. You actually end up reducing stress, and it gives you great focus on hitting essential goals. And once you start to get productivity, you're fulfilling all these goals. And so if you write out a list of goals, like what are you going to do tomorrow? And I usually write them out for the whole week, actually for the whole month, more or less. I could really achieve 80 to 90% of those goals by checking them off during the day or highlighting that it's done. And then I go on to the next thing. So it actually works very well. So optimizing your day is important for brain health, because then you feel fulfillment and you achieve these things.
All right. What about W?
W, you'll love this. Work and play hard. I mean you work hard. Well, when we go on rest and leisure and vacations, we better be having a good time and basically playing very hard as well. And I think it's important to have that balance. So during leisure, having fun and doing what you like to do, whatever it is, going on a vacation, a cruise, visiting, being with friends, it helps reduce stress. So in that sense, the working hard and the playing hard is a good balance. It also increases your brain plasticity and gives you a positive outlook in life. So I believe that we need to play as hard as, if we're working really hard, we need to, when it's time to play, we need to play hard as well. So it gives you a really good balance in life.
All right. So you heard it here, folks. You need sleep. You need to nuke those bad habits, get them out of your life. You need to optimize your day, and you need to work hard and, of course, play hard. Okay. Yep. So that's snow. What about brain? Let's walk through that. What's the B in brain?
The B stands for be at your best. And this has to do with self-improvement, self-care, personal growth. Positive habits are good for you. If you nurture your mental and emotional well-being, it's going to be really good for your brain health. You get a confident and empowered mindset. And you're boosting your brain health and overall happiness. So always try and be at your best. We always try and optimize what we do, but also be at your best when you're doing it. So I think that's important acronym to have.
What about R?
R is for rest. So some people, if they could do meditation, that's why meditation is amazing for your brain health. It's like a brain reset, a brain recharge. It reduces stress, increases your focus, increases your memory. So I don't do meditation, but what do? I take short breaks. So if you're working like an hour, and then take a break, go down and get a drink. If you're working at home, get something to eat, watch a show, watch the Seahawks lose. Boy, that game yesterday, we want to talk about that. Whatever you could do to improve your cognitive function, emotional resilience, That would be good. By the way, Seahawks played in Baltimore. It was like a whooping. We want to talk about that.
I watched it.
It was pretty bad. Okay. Hopefully they could.
All right. How about A?
Aim to exercise. It is amazing the research that has come out on how exercise is so good for your brain health. So we're talking, working out maybe for an hour, 3 to 4 days a week. Regular physical activity or walking or working out has amazing benefits to the brain. And this research has been done within the last few years, and they've proven it. It increases blood flow to the brain. It increases the growth of new neurons. So we talked about plasticity. Exercising actually does that. You remember we were talking about this the other day, and I said, when I went to medical school, when I was teaching first-year medical students, I remember they said, well, adult neurons, they don't divide. They never change. So they're dying as you get older. And that's what they were telling all the medical students. Turns out to be completely wrong, right? So if you learn new stuff, your brain actually can change physically, and new neurons can actually grow in the adult brain. So that's all new. And by exercising, you enhance your cognitive abilities. You get better brain health, and you could decrease cognitive decline. And this has been proven now in a number of great studies that have been published. I'll give the viewer a few examples where exercise has been shown to improve brain health. So everybody can do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't you actually feel better after you exercise? And you you feel like your brain is clear. You could focus, and all of a sudden, you feel so much better. So I think
you know that 50% of my questions are going to be on the
A. On exercise. Yeah, it's
no, not quite, but you know what exercise is very important.
Yep.
What about the I? They say there's no I in team, but what about the I in brain?
I is interesting. It's influencing others. And what do I mean by that? I mean human interactions, social interactions tend to be very important. I remember my father died, and then my mother lived alone, and later on she got Alzheimer's disease and basically was not social interacting with other people. And I picked up on this way later when she started getting the disease worse and worse, but she lived alone. My father always used to take her out and do social interactions. They went to plays and concerts and dinner and all that kind of stuff. And then there was nothing after he died. And studies are now showing that social engagement is actually good for increasing your cognitive reserve, increasing your brain health. So if you have family and social interactions, I think are very important for optimizing your brain health.
All right. Well, let's bring it home. And
new experiences. So, we're talking about things like, let's say you've never played tennis before and then you learn how to play it, or you haven't played chess and then learn how to play it. These are novel new experiences. They're going to stimulate neural pathways, and they're going to increase neuroplasticity, as we talked about. So if you're really curious, now this is trying something new, acquiring a new skill. It gives you a very sharp and adaptive mind. And so by doing that, and I'm always looking for like new things to try, like even on vacation, you want to go to a new show or a new this and that, or acquire a new skill or a new game or a new hobby. It actually helps with your brain health. So I think this is it. SNOWBRAIN, SNOWBRAIN, for SNOWBRAIN Principles. These are 9 lifestyle changes that I think can improve your brain health from day one, like within 30 days, for sure. And I think people will see improvements anywhere from 30 to 50%. And that's what the studies are showing. Like, this is published
Yeah.
data. I'm not just making this up. That show variations of this, how social interactions, exercise, optimization is going to help your overall brain health.
Yeah, so let's dig into it a little bit further. I'm going to start with sleep. So I know that there are a number of public figures in recent years who've started to emphasize more and more the importance of sleep. Not just doctors, but individuals like Ariana Huffington have said it's one of the most severe pandemics of our time, and we need to make sleep sexy again. Like, it's very important that people start valuing sleep, because I know as entrepreneurs, you and I both know there are a lot of people that brag about how little sleep they get. That really can't be what is the emphasis moving forward. It's not healthy, it's not helpful for brain health. But let's dig into that a little bit further. And actually, so what happens to the brain when we don't get sufficient sleep or sufficient block of sleep, that 7 to 8 hours?
Well, I think you're very groggy when you wake up. It's hard to focus during the day. I mean, I know that if I'm I tend to do a pretty bad habit that it's actually looking on YouTube or watching other videos right before I get to sleep. That's pretty bad. Yeah, basically we shouldn't be doing that. The other thing is about light. You know, people watch TV and they have light in their room. There's actually studies with these glasses that you could buy. They're sort of beta light blockers, and they make white light actually sort of orangey, and it reduces your brain activity, starting to get into that restful sleep that you're trying to optimize. So there's all kinds of tricks. You shouldn't be watching TV, you shouldn't be watching videos before you go to bed, and all that kind of stuff that will help to optimize your sleep. The other thing is, have you ever traveled to like Europe and then you have the time zone change? You know, a lot of times they want you to stay awake and get used and go into the next day as it is, because if you take that short nap trying to catch up, you're basically screwed for the next week. And I remember going to medical conferences, and I would come in, I would be so tired overnight, the flight's 10 hours or whatever, and then I take a little nap and then wake up. Guess what time you wake up? 4 or 5 in the morning. You're wide awake, right? So you try to adjust. These are adjustments to your light, that your brain sees light as time to wake up type of thing. So you got to adapt to that.
Yeah, but I want to emphasize a few of the points that you made that I think are so critical. Light pollution is a part of everyday life, especially for those that live in cities. So it's important that you're thoughtful about what light sources, and it might even be, it might be like a distant bathroom light or the hall light or like a reading lamp or even your computer light.
Yep.
Like if that's on all night, that can affect and influence your sleep. What you're talking about with circadian rhythms, with eating is really important, like not eating right before you go to bed. Other habits like that are so important.
Not drinking
and the other
water, right? Unfortunately, I need to drink water, but when I do it right before I go to bed, I'm up 2 or 3 hours later going to the bathroom. So you obviously have interrupted sleep, right? You're not sleeping through 7 to 8 hours.
Yeah. And then looking at research that is referenced by guys like Dr. Mike Israetel, you can't catch up on sleep. Not just for the brain, but also for if you're trying to build muscle and you're trying to improve your cardiovascular health. You cannot catch up on sleep. No amount of naps, Now, I'm not saying naps are bad, not at all. Actually, naps can be really helpful, but naps are supplemental. They are not substitutes for that 7 or 8 hours of sleep.
So I know somebody who's a friend of mine who's a constant napper, and I tell her it's pretty bad to be napping all the time, and her whole rhythm is completely gone, right? You take a nap, feel better, and then you can't go to sleep at night. So you lose that systematic, what should be natural sleep. and going through the cycle, you completely ruin the cycle. So you got to watch out for those taking naps all the time as a solution to basically sleeping constantly 7 to 8 hours.
Absolutely. And if we weren't already controversial, we need to get into nuking bad habits.
Oh my God.
Everyone's favorite thing. So I wonder if you could walk us through a couple of different things. You mentioned alcohol, you mentioned substances, tobacco. I don't know if we mentioned marijuana explicitly, but smoking, not necessarily a great thing for your health, especially not your brain. Can you walk us through why that matters? What happens to your brain on large amounts of alcohol over long periods of time, or on marijuana or nicotine or whatever substances?
Sure. I mean, basically, you're killing neurons. The bottom line. Let's talk about it. Recreational drugs.
Why should I care about that? Why do I care that I'm killing neurons?
So, you have certain neurons in your brain, and like the marijuana users. Like when I was in college, we call stoners, basically, right? They'd walk. The stoners would be smoking all day long. And basically, we called them jellyheads, okay? And why are they called jellyheads? Because they walked around like a jellyhead, and they weren't sharp at all. They were smoking all the time, and they're basically killing all their neurons. And yeah, tons of neurons to kill. But if you want to optimize your brain, you want to be sharp, focus, know what's going on, you're not going to be smoking dope day in and day out. Okay, it's not good for your brain. Alcohol is bad for your liver, but it also helps kill brain cells. And nicotine, I don't know all the data on it, so I would have to look up what's the latest on nicotine and brain health. But my first guess is it's not good for your brain as well, but not as bad as marijuana. Now, some people, I've read some studies that marijuana, it's good for pain. It's good for taking away, let's say, if you have cancer, and it helps null the pain. So in some aspects, it may be good. But if you're a normal, healthy individual, I wouldn't be waking up and smoking pot, because you're going to walk around and be a jellyhead, basically, eventually. And the more you do it, the more not good for your brain in the long run.
Okay. I want to ask you about a couple other substances that are maybe borderline, that are more popular in a lot of circles. So let's talk a little bit about caffeine. I'm interested to hear if you have any perspective on that. And what about ultra processed foods? Like a lot of the American diet, a lot of the diet in the EU, in the UK. We have an ultra processed diet. Is that what kinds of effects do we think that kind of diet has upon our brains?
I don't think let's get to the second question. I don't think processed food like white bread is good for you. You know, a lot of sugar, not only for your brain, but for the rest of your body. That's why natural fruits and nuts, and I think we talked about polyphenols in foods and fruits that we could eat that are actually very good for you. The more processed it is, the worse off in general it is. So, I like hamburgers and hot dogs once in a while, hamburgers and fries, but I wouldn't be eating it every day, because the processed food is very bad for you. Carbohydrates, high in carbohydrates, not good. If you look at the glycemic index, I don't know if you know about that, but fruit has a low glycemic index. It's carbohydrates, but it's kind of a good carbohydrate. Whereas a cheeseburger with French fries would be a high glycemic index and not be very good for you. So those are sort of bad carbohydrates versus good carbohydrates. And carbohydrate, you ever have like pizza and then you get really tired after and ready to go take a nap? Well, it's telling, you get a spike in insulin and then it drops back down, right? So you're up, you feel great, and oh my God, okay, I got to go take a nap now, go to sleep. So the high carbohydrates is not great for you. What was the first question you asked me?
Caffeine.
Caffeine is actually good for your brain. This is
Is
surprising.
it?
Yes. And there's even been studies where caffeine has shown to stimulate neurons and actually be good for you. Now, excess caffeine may be overdoing it. So I'd say 1 to 2 cups of coffees a day. You don't want to be getting the jitters by having 10 cups of coffee and then you're never going to sleep at night. I can't have a coffee after like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or else I know I'm not going to sleep very well. Interesting, we talk about this because in the dietary supplement that I developed, oolong tea has its own, which is part of the 2 ingredients in the product called Percepta. Cat's claw, we talked about polyphenols, but oolong tea and various teas has natural caffeine. In just a little bit, it's about 1/3 of a cup of coffee in the oolong tea that we have in our dietary supplement Percepta. It actually seems to be good for your brain health. And so a little bit of caffeine is actually pretty good. And I could show you papers on showing that caffeine is actually good for cognitive health.
So I want to talk a little bit about on it's optimizing your day. So for optimizing your day, writing down your goals, thinking about your goals, you talked a little bit about the importance of really thinking about what you're doing, intentionality. So I know that individuals like Scott Adams and Tim Ferriss, there are a number of individuals that talk about the importance of reflecting on your day, writing down your goals. So why is that important though for brain health and in optimizing your brain health?
So what you're trying to do, it's almost like being around positive affirmations. You're trying to get it to sink into your subconscious mind. So you have your conscious mind, right? Everything you do and see in front of you. But then you're trying to program your subconscious into hitting all these goals, getting all these things that you want, having whatever cars, money, houses, this and that. You could actually trick your brain. So you could trick your subconscious mind, cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is not real. People who listen to these things, I am rich, I am, money is here, it's in. If you listen to that stuff, like when you're going to sleep and you wake up, it's already starting to get buried into your subconscious mind. And actually, I believe a lot of those things, you tend to do things without you even knowing it. I could give you a perfect example because it happened to me when I was younger. I wanted this car. It was a Jaguar XK coupe. I have it in my driveway, by the way. And I was so interested. I couldn't afford it. But I kept on saying, I'm driving this car, and you visualize, this is what athletes do. They visualize that they won the gold medal, that they threw the touchdown, that they ran the track meet under 4 minutes or whatever, under 10 seconds, depending on what they were doing. And they actually program their mind into the subconscious that it happens, and they do everything without even them knowing it consciously to hit those goals. And so the same thing happens when you're writing out your goals and you're trying to optimize. You keep on reinforcing it. It's a reinforcement into your subconscious mind. And then a lot of these things turn out to work. And you hit those goals. And it's just a lot of programming. And it's amazing. We could have a whole discussion on this, the laws of attraction. I really believe in that. And I've been using it for my whole life. So I kept on saying about this car, I'm going to get this car, couldn't afford it. All of a sudden I ended up at this Jaguar dealership, and I was, oh yeah, I'm going to lease it, whatever. Then you actually, test drive it. All of a sudden I had this car in my driveway. I couldn't afford it. Like, it was amazing. And now, it's paid off, and it's a 2007 Jaguar XK. And I brought it in to my subconscious mind and actually started doing things toward it, and I got it. quite amazing. And so that's my experience with sort of writing things down in journals and keep on pushing it.
Yeah, I don't know
Those
the
goals.
validity of the study, but I know that there was a study they did where they did interventions around shooting basketballs, like shooting hoops. And one of the groups, the intervention was just to have them imagine it, not to actually do it, against a group that actually did it and a control group. And the improvement that they saw of the people that just envisioned themselves doing it was not quite to the level of those that practiced, but it was much better than the control group. And I think that's just quite amazing.
Yeah, a lot of the gold
the brain
medal
is.
athletes, Michael Phelps, for instance, the swimmer, they all envisioned that they already won the medal, right? And this is in their head. They have the race. The race is done. They've already won it. So when it comes time to do the race physically, they're gone. Like they're ahead of everybody. He was one of the great athletes that's able to use visualization. And again, pushing into the subconscious mind for it to occur.
Yeah, so I can see why that's so important for the brain. So working hard and playing hard. Let's do a little bit of a deeper dive. So why is working hard so important for the brain? Why is it important to push your brain to challenge yourself in the work that you do, in the relationships that you have, and the habits that you have? Why would work be good for the brain? Wouldn't work simply fatigue the brain or frustrate the brain?
No, if you're multitasking and focusing on different things, it's excellent for improving your brain health and your memory, focus, and concentration. And so some people are lazy, let's put it that way, and they don't work very hard. And I think they're wasting a lot of their day and a lot of their life. Some people don't want to work and they're lazy, and then their whole balance, also leisure, are they working? Are they not working? What's the difference? What's the purpose of your life? And then what are you in your life going to do? Like, what's your purpose? And so I've always worked very hard, like fanatically. But then I also, when I stop working, I like to also balance that with having fun or doing something that I like to do, or visiting or vacationing or whatever. I think it's important.
Or going to football games or hockey games.
Yeah, going to hockey games, football games, and baseball games. Like watching sports.
No, I think it makes sense. So why also? So you mentioned play hard. So so it's really important for your brain to also have time to hibernate, to check out from other work that you're doing.
Yeah, it's basically giving you some rest. So if you go to a hockey game and you're watching it in the crowd and enjoying it and cheering and all that kind of stuff, it's good for you because it's balancing out your hard work with having fun. So if it's not balanced, that's also not good. And your brain tends to like that type of balance of working hard and playing hard. I think the balance on both sides is important.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's delve into the brain a little bit further. So the brain, the B is be your best self. Is that correct?
Yep.
Great. My brain is working as it should be.
Good focus.
So what does it mean to be your best self? Is that just thoughtful habits? Is that pursuing your interests, your passions? Like what does it mean to the expression of being your best self in terms of your brain and your brain health?
I think it has to do with your overall positivity and happiness. Okay, so if you want to, in your work, be the best worker, let's say at your company, or want to prove or show your boss you could hit that, or if you're an entrepreneur and you really want to take, let's say, this brain health show right here to another level, I mean, we're working hard to try and make this the optimized brain health show on the internet, period. And so I'm always trying to hit high levels, and next time we do it, I want to hit another high level. An example, Mr. Beast, we talked about it the other day. His whole thing, always try to improve your next video a little bit better than your previous video. So I actually took that to heart. I'm going, okay, let's make this video a little bit better than the last video we did. And he said it could be a thumbnail, it could be the way you're editing, it could be, the way you look at the camera, it could be little things, but you're always trying to improve. And I think that's centered to the be your best. Always try to improve what you're doing from one day to the next. And then what you'll see is you're going to take your whole life and your brain health and your cognition to another level. And so that's what I mean by trying to be at your best.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I always think of the British cycling team that started focusing on improving in those little ways, and the cumulative improvement of improving 3% here, 5% there is really amazing. Like, be a little bit more positive in the way that you approach something.
Yep.
Be more resilient in the way that you are working through a problem. Like, those little things, those little habits compound over long periods of time.
Very true. Yeah, really good. Yep.
So rest. So when you talked about rest, this was a little bit different than sleep, and even a little bit different than the way you approached some of the other acronyms. One of the things you mentioned was meditation and the importance of meditation. I know that meditation is something that a lot of high performers emphasize. There's a lot of, I think that's one of the strongest continuities between high performers that I've studied, is that most of them have meditation rituals or some kind of gratitude ritual. So how do you connect that with rest? Like, how does meditation, how does gratitude, how do those connect with being restful?
Well, I wish I meditated. I don't have, I guess, the patience for it. But there are studies that show that meditation actually helps clear out toxins from your brain, including beta amyloid plaques. In fact, my partner, Dr. Rudy Tanzi out of Harvard, did a lot of work with Deepak Chopra. I don't know if you heard of him, but he wrote many books on meditation. They actually did the research and showed that meditation was improving brain health and cognitive health. So meditation, in a way, is a kind of rest, because you take your mind away from your everyday physical things that you're doing and try and put your brain in a restful state. And so you're hitting, and by the way, you're hitting different waves, alpha waves and beta and delta, which are really good to hit in your brain, because it gives your brain cells a rest and recharges them. And that's what the research is finding. Some of the research that's come out on this is quite amazing, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we might have to do a whole episode on the things related to meditation and other kinds of interventions, because I think the literature is really interesting, and I'd love to hear more from your perspective, all of the research and the perspectives that you all have and bring to the table. I think that would be really fantastic. But I'm going to move along to one that I really am excited to talk about, which is aim to exercise. So when you think about exercise, there are a lot of different perspectives that people bring to the table about what they mean by exercise. Because there's a lot of people that focus, for example, on cardiovascular health and the importance of walking, running, biking, kayaking, swimming, those kinds of activities, which we know are very healthy. There's also the aspect of training, like lifting weights, hypertrophy training, that is focused on building muscular health. How do you think about exercise in terms of what kind of balance you should strike? What's best for the brain? Is all of it equal in terms of the brain, or are there elements that we should parse out between, say, weight training and cardiovascular health activities?
So it could be a combination of everything, basically. I don't think that running is going to take the place of working out. It's things that will increase your heart rate, will get better blood flow to the brain. So, for instance, when I work out 4 or 5 days a week, I'm doing basically videos from beachbody.com and some pretty hard stuff, P90X and things like that. It's sort of a combination of weight training, and then you do sort of fast type of cardiac training. Interval training is what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that people should be doing one thing. So let's say we have a runner and he just wants to go out and take a 3-mile, run every other day. I think that it's a combination of physical weight training with some sort of interval cardiac training is going to be good, not only for your heart, your body, but also for your brain. So I think it's basically doing it for at least 30 to 40 minutes and then doing it 3 to 5 times a week. So you want to keep it consistent, because then you start to get into a good routine.
Yeah, and based on what I've read, that seems to be the consistent element, and it is important to have elements of both.
Right.
You really do need elements of both, and both can be helpful in some really different ways. I've been reading a recent book by Peter Attia that talks about there's a lot of emphasis right now on nutrition, and there should be, because there's a lot of issues with our diets and the way that we think about nutrition and nutritional balance. There really is a lack of us actually moving and weight training and improving cardiovascular health in terms of longevity. We talk a lot about lifespan and not as much about health span. And you and I both know that health span really needs to be something that we emphasize, because the taking care of your brain can really improve the quality of your life.
Right.
Not just the number of years you live, but
quality.
how you think, the quality of your life every day.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. We'll have to have a whole episode delving into some of the aspects of exercise on brain health. So let's dig a little bit into the eye. So tell me a little bit more about your perspectives on why community is so important. And when you think about community, are you thinking about just is that just making sure that you have individual friendships? Is it making sure you're a part of a vibrant religious, political, philosophical, or just general activities based community? What matters in terms of human connection and community?
I think it's first is family. So if you have brothers and sisters or mothers and fathers, interacting with them is very good positivity for yourself, your brain, your cognitive health. Like you said, I remember after my father died, my mother was alone. So she lived in Toronto, Canada. I live in Seattle, Washington. So obviously it was hard. She never interacted, and I really saw a decline in her overall cognitive health. Friends are important. So friends are important in life, but it's also very good for your brain health, your social interactions, supporting people around you, caring for elderly when you're younger, or helping a person you don't even know, giving them your chair, getting up on the bus to let them sit down if they're older, that type of thing. All that type of social interaction is excellent for improving your brain health overall. So the social interactions as part of society is actually a good thing. And I really think in family, a lot of times you have a fight with your mother, father, and don't want to talk to them again. All that is not good for you in your thinking, in your positivity, in your overall cognitive health. So if you could rectify some of those problems, it's going to help you overall mental well-being when we think about it.
Yeah. And I know a lot of these things are connected. I think of they redid some of the rat studies with addiction, and they put multiple rats in the same cage, and they behave very differently. Like our addiction to substances, our willingness to exhibit certain behaviors tend to lessen when we have social connection and fulfillment from others.
And there's actually
So-
studies on all this, Scott. Quite interesting, actually. You would think.
Well, let's dig into it. What are some of the observations that we see?
No, some of the
in
studies
literature?
is showing that there's improvement in overall memory and cognition and neuroplasticity as people are social interacting. So I just recently, saw some of these papers. I was going, wow, that's kind of interesting. Never would have thought that, right? But they're actually looking into the actual science behind it. So
great, and we'll have to do a whole episode on that as well.
lots of episodes.
I'm signing you up for lots of episodes at this point.
Yep.
You're welcome. So,
Thanks.
But let's polish it off and go back to what are some of these like new activities. I'm sure you've gotten in. Have you gotten into the pickleball craze or
No, I was
any of these like new activities?
I don't know if you knew this, but I wanted to be a professional tennis player when I was younger, and I was on the
You did tell me this.
I was on the Canadian national team, and I went on a scholarship, a tennis scholarship to Bowling Green State University in Ohio. And then I found out how many good tennis players there are. And I don't know if you've seen the tennis players lately, but Djokovic, who won the US Open at age 36, amazing. These guys are like another league of athletes from like McEnroe and Connors when I watched when I was a young kid. They're in a different group. Pickleball, I used to play ping pong and badminton, anything with a hand-eye coordination I was always good at. Ice hockey, baseball. Never played football. You said you wanted to be a football player. I don't know. After learning our whole discussion on CTE and blows to the head and how bad it is to possibly get chronic traumatic encephalopathy and all that going on, it's a dangerous sport.
But new activities, I mean, it can be everything from like martial arts to video editing to knitting to gardening. Like there's so many different activities and pushing yourself. Like, I really like to cook, and I enjoy the creativity of cooking and the actual process of going through ingredients. So doing new things makes a lot of sense. But why is it particularly important for the brain that we be doing new things and novel things?
It's a good question. So think about, you're doing all these bad things, smoking, recreational, you're killing neurons. Guess what? By learning new things, you can actually create new neurons. So you're balancing the bad stuff with some of the good stuff. And there are studies now showing that if you're learning new things that are not something really new to your brain, you're actually rewiring some of your brain. And physically, there's actually increases in neurons and neuroplasticity. So the brain is adapting physically to what you're doing that's new. And it has to learn and have connections. Remember, to remember a thought, you have to connect from different areas of your brain. So you have the hippocampus, which is the memory learning center, but you have the cortex, and the synapses connect from different areas. And so if you're starting to make new connections, synapses and neurons, that's actually changing the physical architecture of your brain, which is quite amazing, actually. Like I said, in early years, 20 years ago, they never thought that adult brains can divide. That's completely wrong. And so there's a lot of stuff that's come out on this.
But I want to build on that a little bit, because all the books that I read in the 2000s talked about how you better read as much as you possibly can by the time that you're 25, because after that, if you haven't read or developed these habits, or you're screwed. Like, good luck.
That's
like bye-bye. Like,
and that's changed.
But a lot of the newest research is saying isn't how it actually works. So what would you say to individuals who continue to say, hey, like, there are fewer connections in the brain as you get older? What does neuroplasticity tell us about what the brain is like as you age?
It's amazing to me, actually, that you could physically reshape your brain as you're getting older and learning new habits or having new experiences. To have a physical change in the actual brain matter itself is quite remarkable, actually. And it just shows us how much we don't really know about the brain, and why like this type of show, Brain Health, is so important, because really the brain is some of the undermined things that we need to start to learn about. So I think within the next 5 years, we're going to learn so much more about brain and brain health and how important this is in your life. Because remember, when you go to a physical exam, they're looking at your heart, take your blood. They're not really looking at your brain, are they? So unless it's cognitive really bad and you may have Alzheimer's and they're worried about that. But it should be regular part of looking at our brain. Every time you go to the doctor should be part of it. And it's not.
Yeah. So
And that's why we have this show.
Anytime you're thinking about optimizing for your brain, we'll see how well my brain machine is working today. So we need sleep. We need to nuke our bad habits. We need to optimize our day. We need to work hard and we need to play hard. And then as far as the brain is concerned, we need to be our best selves. We need to rest. We need to aim to exercise. We need to try to remember what the I is, but connecting with community, right? Being involved with
influence
community
others.
and
Yep.
influence others. And then, of course, new habits, new activities,
New experiences.
to stretch the brain.
Yep, new experiences. It's pretty good, Scott.
So keep those in mind.
The SNOWBRAIN Principles.
SNOWBRAIN. And thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Dr. SNOWBRAIN Health Show. We will be back very soon with another episode, well, multiple episodes, I'm sure. And if you're interested in learning more, please click down below and subscribe. So thank you so much for your time. It was always great to talk to you, Dr. Snow.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Scott.